What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Ad Talk by Ad Class. This is, well, we were debating what episode number this is because it's been so long since we made an episode, but we're back, baby. And this is number 22, I believe, episode number 22. They say if you make it past 20, you've made it. Well, we made it to 21 and then gave up for a while, but we're back now. We didn't really give up, just got busy. And today we are talking about all things Facebook ads, meta ads, and conversions API. Now, if you heard that last statement and thought, well, geez, I'm not going to listen to the rest of this. Well, I'll try to convince you by saying conversions API is probably the number one thing you could implement with your Facebook ads right now that is just going to improve your performance across the board without having to do anything else. So if that's not convincing enough, I don't know what to tell you. You're probably not running ads, which, I'm not sure how you made it to Ad Talk, but you can still be our friend. If that is you and you are running ads and you want to improve your performance, listen to this episode. That's what we're going to be breaking down. I'm here with Matthew, strategist here at Ad Class. What's up, Matthew?
So, good to be back. It feels like shaking off the rust, but this is an important topic to be talking about. So glad we're doing it, man.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. So we're gonna get into a few things today. So first things first, we're gonna give an introduction of what is Conversions API. So that's number one. If you've heard CAPI or Conversions API being thrown around a little bit, and you're like, I still don't understand what that is, we'll break it down step by step. We're gonna break down how it works. We're going to talk about why it works more than anything, and the theory behind like what does this actually do for meta ads, like what can you expect to see performance-wise from your meta ads, your Instagram, Facebook ads when you implement this? And these principles will apply for Google as well, and any other ad platform that takes API conversions, but we're going to be focused mostly on Facebook today. And then we're also going to be talking about real-world applications. So basically, what are we doing right now with our clients at Ad Class with Conversions API, and how has it helped? And some of the common pitfalls, how to avoid them. And that's about it. So we're going to jump right into it. First off, what is Conversions API? Conversions API is super duper simple. If you think about it from a very, very simple standpoint, when you run any sort of conversion-based ad campaign, you're always going to be optimizing toward a specific conversion. So the simplest form of explaining this is that you might be running ads for an e-commerce product, and let's say someone purchases your e-commerce product. We always like to use tennis shoes in ad talk. Let's say you're running some new sneakers that you invented. They're on your Shopify store. Somebody clicks on them, adds them to their cart, and purchases. During that user session, the user is achieving certain conversions with your business, and essentially Meta needs to know what conversions they're achieving in order to help you optimize your ads to find more people that do those conversions. Pretty simple. Most of you already know what a conversion is. However, up to this point, I would say up to really a few years ago, almost all of the conversion tracking, in other words, telling Facebook when a conversion happens and how it happens, took place at the browser level. What do I mean by browser? Well, pretty simple. We have Google Chrome, we have Safari, we have Microsoft Edge, right? These are browsers. And before, it was pretty common practice just to set up events that fire on specific web pages on your browser, and for the Facebook algorithm or the Google Pixel, Facebook Pixel to actually look at your browser tracking, your cookies, in other words, to figure out what conversion happened. So commonly what we would do is, let's say that there's a thank you for purchasing page. We would throw a little snippet on that page that said, hey, Facebook, this is a purchase. That's worked up to this point. And then something happened. You know what happened, Matthew? You know what happened? I'll give you a hint.
Meta.
Yeah, well, Meta happened, yeah. Apple happened, actually.
Obviously.
Apple has been kind of the big
the cookie monster.
The cookie monster. That's right. That's actually a great way to put it.
Thank you, man.
Apple's like, nom, 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 cookie.
No more third party.
And anywhere that it saw cookies, it devoured them. So basically what happened is, if you look at your iPhone right now, ever since iOS 14, and we're on like 18 now, so this was a few years ago. If you look at your settings and you look at ad tracking, if you have a new iPhone, you got one in the last year or two, it probably came out of the box with ad tracking turned off. And what that means essentially is that your iPhone is stopping platforms like Meta from tracking your browser data. And what that means is that if you're using Safari to complete a purchase, or even the browser within, some of your apps, the app itself doesn't actually see that happening anymore. It's not tracking that. And what we're finding is that Google, Chrome, and some of these other big ones, Firefox, they're all starting to phase out cookie tracking over the next few years. And because of this, the accuracy of cookie-based tracking or browser-based tracking is really, really starting to take a hit. So if you run ads and your traffic is 90% mobile, like a lot of our offers are, and those people are purchasing on their mobile phones, there's a good chance if you're in America that their mobile phones are Apple and that they're opting out of ad tracking, and that now the ad platform is kind of just guessing on whether or not this person converted, right? Based on some data that it might or might not have. So that is not Conversions API. I'm just explaining the past setup of browser-based tracking so that you can understand what is Conversions API. Matthew, what questions might someone have based on how I just described that? Because it's a complex topic. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything on browser-based tracking.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anything that I missed there?
I think one question, especially for advertisers that might have been new to the game since this kind of thing, they're trying stuff out. One question would be like, has it always been that inaccurate with browser side reporting, or is this like a new thing that's just come about because of changes to third-party tracking cookies?
It's always been somewhat inaccurate, and like we've always recommended people use a third-party tracking solution, right? Like, we use a lot of Hyros at our company, and there's Triple Whale, there's Northbeam, there's a bunch of other solutions out there, Google Analytics, like whatever you want to use to track, but it's never been this bad. So even in the Meta platform itself, you'll hover over the conversions tab and it'll say something like, this is an estimate based on data projections that we have, right? It's not actually saying, hey, this is how many conversions you have. And once you get back-end tracking set up on a platform like Hyros or something like that, and you go and you compare the number of conversions that platform is seeing, or even you look in your CRM and see how many sales you got, and then you compare that to Facebook, you'll start to see the inaccuracies are pretty big. I mean, 30% is not uncommon. So that's not always been this way. It's a newer problem. That's a good question. But it has always been a little bit weird. I mean, back in 2017, 2018, and some of these ad accounts that we take over still have this set up. People used to use what were called custom conversions in Meta to track everything in their funnel. So they used to put a custom conversion on every single page, or at least half of the pages, and put a custom name to it. So it would be like Matthew Gosling's website landing page conversion, Matthew Gosling's website opt-in page conversion, right? And they would count all these up, and people would use that as their analytics suite. Like they would look at that and be like, oh, cool, this is how many people are moving through my funnel. But that is not accurate anymore, because that was all based on browser-based tracking and page loads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other question I think would be, why wouldn't people want to have their cookies tracked in a way? Like, wouldn't you want ads to be relevant to who you are and, show you stuff that is interesting to you rather than just, a bunch of things that could be relevant? Like, why was there that philosophical change in how we're approaching that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I still do. I opt into ad tracking, right? But it's because I'm an advertiser, probably. I mean, I would imagine that privacy concerns are the main thing that pop up for people to not want to opt into ad tracking, right? And so if you go back to the Cambridge Analytica thing with 2016 with the election with Trump, that was a big crazy data thing where essentially there was an agency that just had all of the data and built a whole campaign around how to find the right people at the right time to win an election, essentially, and it worked. And I think ever since then, there's been a little bit more mindfulness of what are these platforms doing with our data and how much can advertisers access it, right? And so all the changes in the most recent years to audience targeting and AI entering into the mix has essentially taken that data out of the advertisers' hands. So like we don't see a lot of that stuff, and it's given it more into like the black box algorithm of the ad platform. So I think they still have all that data. It's just not something that's readily available. But when people opt out of ad tracking, I think they're essentially afraid that their phone is listening to them, following them around, knows more about them than they know themselves, whatever it is, right? So
that's a good conversation for another time. Is my phone listening to me? So we can definitely.
Is my phone listening to me? Yeah, I want to make a whole video about that a separate time. But long story short, it's not listening, but it does know more about you than you know about yourself, most likely, just based on your habits. But cool. So that's browser-based tracking, and people can opt out. And don't hear me say that server-side or Conversions API fixes that completely. But here's the big difference: everything I just described up to this point is data that is owned by not you, essentially. The Facebook pixel is Facebook's way of collecting data, and browser-based tracking is third-party tracking. It's not yours as a business owner or as an advertiser. And so Conversions API, really what we're talking about here is taking your data, what you own. So think what's in your CRM, what's on your website servers, the things that you physically have paid for and own, and pushing that into the ad platform so that the ad platform has a fuller picture of what's really going on in your funnels, on your website, and essentially who's buying and doing actions that you deem as conversions. So how does it work? Well, essentially very, very simple in practice, or simple in theory, maybe not simple in practice, but essentially what happens is let's say you have a CRM that collects all of your leads. Maybe it collects information on who books a call with you. Maybe it collects who purchases, whatever it is, the things that are most important to you. In Conversions API setup, essentially what you're doing is you're setting up a direct link via the API between your CRM or your website and Facebook, or in this case, Meta. So when someone opts into your funnel, now instead of firing a conversion on the thank you page for opting in, you're actually taking that lead data straight from your CRM, so the email they gave you or their phone number they gave you or their name they gave you, and you're pushing it via API straight into Meta. So now when that happens, Meta sees, instead of so-and-so user with this click ID hitting a thank you page, it sees Matthew Gosling from Matthew Gosling hometown with Matthew Gosling phone number that he put in, just achieved this conversion in this person's CRM. So it does not rely on the browser anymore to collect that data, because you're actually pushing that data straight through. And you own that data because when Matthew opted into your website, he gave you that data, right? So that is the biggest difference. And already your mind might start spinning and be like, how is that any better? Well, it's better because Facebook has Matthew's email already. It has his IP address already. It has data about what apps he uses and when he uses them. It has what pages he follows and engages with. He has where he's commented and where he hasn't commented. It has all of his friends and what they're interested in. You name it, go down the list. And it's when this conversion happens, now it has an accurate depiction of not only how many conversions there actually were because it happened in your CRM, but also who did those conversions and why, right? And that's what the algorithm is really trying to figure out. So that's Conversions API, and that's essentially how it works. So at a high level, stuff happens in your business, you send that stuff straight to Meta, and Meta can now optimize its ads toward those things. Beautiful. All right. That's a lot. It's a lot to think about. But if you've ever seen CAPI or Conversions API, that's what they're talking about. So how does this actually help? Well, I started to describe sort of the better data that Facebook now has access to, and what it allows Facebook to do, or the ad platform to do in this case, is essentially improve your lead quality or your conversion quality based on that better data. So I want you to just for a second imagine if half of the people on your business were opted out of ad tracking, what that sort of blurry picture Facebook might have is, right? Let's say 100 people bought something from you. Let's go back to our pair of shoes reference. 100 people bought your pair of shoes, but Facebook could only actually match 50 of those people because the other 50 opted out. Well, figures that have come out, you might need to Google this while I'm talking, Matthew, but I think it's closer to 80 or 90% of people opting out of ad traffic right now on iPhone. I'm not sure if it's readily available, but like you could do a really quick look at your offer and whatever you're running in your ad spend and see what percentage of your ad spend is going to iPhone users, right? And then take a quick index of how many of those iPhone users are opted out of ad tracking. And you might quickly see how this black hole is affecting your advertising.
88% of iOS Facebook users worldwide opted out.
Worldwide. So 88% opted out of ad tracking. In other words, they said, hey, browsers don't track what I'm doing. Pretty stark difference between that number and 5 years ago, as an example. And a lot of these direct response advertisers are saying, why does my stuff just not work anymore? I mean, this is a huge factor, right? So essentially, Conversions API is going to help Facebook see a lot of that missed data. It might not be perfect, but it's going to improve it for sure. You'll see an event quality metric in your ad account, and that's going to tell you how much it's matching that data to people on Facebook. So you're going to get a really real picture of like what percentage of the conversions you're sending through are actually getting matched to Facebook users. That's going to be a good depiction. Overall, it's going to optimize toward better quality individuals. So if you think of a broad targeting campaign, everything right now in Meta is pushing us toward Advantage Plus and broad. They're trying to get us away from lookalike audiences and interest-based audiences. So if you really think about it, if you give Facebook unlimited reign on, hey, find me the right people, what can it use to find you the right people? Well, there's only one thing it knows to look at, which is who has converted in the past. If your conversion data you're feeding it is bad or incomplete, or it's 88% people opting out, that's going to be an issue. It's not going to be able to find the right people. So think about this in terms of feeding it the right data. When you feed Meta the right data, over time, your stuff is going to get better. Your ads are going to serve to better people. You're going to get better conversions, better costs. So, all right. That is Conversions API from a theory standpoint. Matthew, what's next?
Next is looking at what we're doing at AdClass using Conversions API. Changes that we've seen in accounts that we're managing. It's been really interesting, like use case scenarios of comparing what we would see from Facebook compared to what we'd see from a server side like a CAPI. So is there any that spring out in your mind as to like, wow, I'm so glad we put this in?
For sure. I think the most recent example, we came on with a client, and Matthew, this is one you're helping with strategy. We came on with the client earlier this year, and they had sort of always accepted the fact that Facebook over reports leads by, what was it? Like 20 or 30%, I think.
Average over the year was 38%.
38%. So essentially this company collects leads, right? And their cost per lead on Meta was always 38% lower than what HubSpot reported, right? What their actual CRM reported. So in other words, Meta was just always over. It was always over counting. It was saying it was doing better than it was. From an ad optimization perspective, when we came in, that's a really difficult bridge to cross, because it's like, okay, well, which campaigns are accurate, which aren't, why or why not? We don't really know. And unfortunately, their tech stack was set up in a way that we couldn't fix it right away. But we made some progress getting to a new sort of tech stack, landing page, and all this stuff recently. And we put Conversions API into place. So what does that do? Well, now when a lead actually happens in HubSpot, right, when data is actually collected, that's what pushes the data back into the meta pixel. And the pixel now sees that number as the right number. So what happens to your discrepancy? Well, that 38% now goes to roughly 0%, and your ad platform data is accurate. And it's funny because the day after we implemented that, our media buyer came back and said, hey, our leads are 30% more expensive today. What's going on? And we were like, that's just what they've always cost. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have that data because Conversions API wasn't set up and the pixel was over reporting. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's been a huge piece. Now, imagine for a second what Facebook was optimizing toward that whole time. It thought it really was doing as good as it thought it was doing, right? And so it's a weird concept to think about, but it's like the algorithm is basically saying, hey, we're getting leads for this cost. Aren't you happy? But the business owner is saying that's not what the leads actually cost. And there's this weird discrepancy, like, your employee, in this case, Facebook ads is not like showing you the numbers that are actually real, right? If that was a real employee in the real world, you'd fire them. You'd say, you've been lying about your results for the last 9 months. How can I trust you? But in this case, the employee is Facebook and you can't fire them. You have to use their platform. So what do we do? We have to fix the data, right? Mm-hmm. And when we fix that data, the results get better over time because now it actually knows what's happening on the back end.
So we fix the data. It's accurately representing how much a lead is costing, how much conversion is costing, how much a click. Everything is accurate now. What does that change look like in terms of Facebook's pixel and algorithmic like lead generation side?
Yeah. Well, so it has to find a new norm now. So a lot of people expect it to get better like day one. Mm-hmm. What I've found when you implement conversion tracking through the API, the data accuracy is now better, but the volume of conversions is typically different. And usually it's worse than what Facebook was reporting. Mm-hmm. So in this case, if you really think about it, let's just pretend for a second that all of the ad spend is in one campaign with one ad set, right? That ad set is trying to get you 50 conversions, whatever you optimize toward. It's trying to get you 50 of those in a 2-week period, in a 14-day period. Now, Meta has teased that they might change that window to 10 conversions in a 3-day period, I think is what they said recently. Yep. Who knows? That's not what it is now. But if you think about it this way, Facebook is used to getting 50 conversions in a campaign in this scenario, the one where the price was 38%, reduced on Facebook. It's used to getting 50 conversions for a specific number of dollars, right? Now that we've changed the data to be accurate and the leads are technically more expensive on the Facebook platform because it's accurate lead data from HubSpot, it's not going to get 50 leads for that same budget. So what does that cause it to do? It spends the budget, realizes it doesn't get the 50 leads, and starts to try to find new pockets to explore until it can get that lead cost down. And so when you really think about it, this is a 14-day learning period that we just kind of attached to the whole ad account now that the data is actually accurate. So there are ad sets in there that are basically saying back to the algorithm, hey, stuff's more expensive now. We need to figure out why. That's phase one. But phase two, and which happens at the same time, is it now can actually see the right data for who is converting. And that, hand in hand with that first thing, is going to start to give the pixel more understanding of who are the right people that I can go after, right? Yeah. From in a real-time perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously, this impacts Facebook and, not just Facebook, it's Google to take into account, it's TikTok, however you want to think about that kind of stuff. But this impacts marketing generally, not just, the sphere that we happen to be in, but just, taking that microscopic look at high ticket, especially, what kind of ramifications will this has for high ticket when we take it out of the broader marketing context?
Yeah, and more specific to most of our clients, which sell high ticket or essentially products over $5,000 typically, right? I think there's a lot of nuance in what data these people feed back to Meta. So what I mean by that is, in most of the ad accounts we run selling high ticket, we're optimizing toward applications or calls, sometimes leads. The more accurate data of the right people that we can send via Conversion API, the better the offer does at scale. What I mean by that is, if there's an application process, and we've had a whole nother podcast episode on the application, so it's a few back, and people have had good feedback on that. I think it's helped people understand what an application should do for your ads. But if you're running an application, for example, and you have something that disqualifies applicants while they're filling out the application. So let's just say there's a field that if someone answers it a certain way, they're not a good fit for your program. You should not be sending back that applicant's data to Meta. Simple as that. So if you get 100 applicants and 30 of them are not good, in other words, not going to convert in your offer, not the right fit for your program, whatever it is, those 30, you should not be feeding their data back to Meta. You should only be feeding the top 70. And over time, that becomes a self-fulfilling machine of now Meta only seeing the good conversions that are happening in that campaign, thus optimizing toward more of those, and not seeing the bottom bucket of conversions and not using those to optimize. Up to this point, that's been kind of difficult to do with browser-based tracking. You've had to like add in a thank you page for like low quality traffic and don't optimize for that one, only optimize toward the other one. But now it's a little easier because your CRM usually has that data. And when you feed that data back, you feed it back only the good data. So you're optimizing only toward the good stack. And that's what I would say high ticket businesses should take from this is essentially what is the highest leverage KPI or conversion that you have that might not be purchased because you might not get enough purchases to feed that back effectively. Again, we want 50 in a 14-day period. If you're slinging high ticket and getting 50 units in a 14-day period, by all means, optimize toward purchase and send that back. But if you're less than that, you want to be finding the next best event and you want to only take the quality portion of that event and send it back. So how to get Conversion API actually set up. This is something I'm not going to be able to cover extensively here because it really depends on your tech stack. What I mean by that, it depends on your CRM. It depends on all the places you store data. Honestly, we've had the best luck reaching out to a team that just does these setups. If you have like a super crazy CRM or a tech platform that doesn't integrate directly with Facebook. And sometimes it's super easy, like people who are on HubSpot or Go High Level. Both HubSpot and Go High Level have direct integrations with Meta. All you have to do is literally plug it and play it. I mean, it's super, super simple. Anyone that can read some FAQ docs can set that up. But if you're on other platforms, if you're on like Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign, or maybe you have like just a myriad of different things playing together to build your business, you probably need to work with a freelancer. I would go to, obviously, there's a lot of places you could go. I would go to like Upwork or Fiverr, type in Conversion API setup, start vetting some people there, and ask about your tech stack and if they can make it happen. And honestly, there's a lot of smart people out there that can do it. You can use things like Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics to get this set up. You can essentially, you need to have your own server. So pretty low monthly rate to buy your own server and get somebody to set that up through there. Or you can rely on your CRM to kind of set this up. Hyros has Conversion API setup built into it as well. So there's a lot of ways to do it. If you can't find a way to do it, you can actually call Facebook, and they have a Conversion API team, and they can help you do it too using Zapier or Make, essentially close the gap between your CRM and your business and Meta's data. Why are they so helpful? Well, think about it in terms of what they get out of the relationship. They get your data, your sweet, sweet data. I mean, honestly, you're feeding them real-time conversions in a real business. And so they're not relying on just browser data anymore. They're actually getting someone to just give them data, which, from a business perspective, kind of a genius model. But that is why they're so helpful. So if you can't figure out Conversion API on your own, you can go to Meta support, and they're actually pretty helpful to figure out a solution for you as well. So that is that. Now, here's a couple things that I think I just want to put a big asterisk next to, which is one, setting up Conversion API may or may not be right for your business. It's really going to depend on what you do, how you do it, and ultimately whether or not you think that the risk is worth the reward. The risk is very low, but it is feeding data from your CRM to Meta. So, keep that in mind. Number two, there is a chance that you set up Conversion API and you feed extra events to Meta, and it starts double counting things, which is called duplication. We've seen this happen a lot of times. And it's because essentially the Facebook pixel gets certain data, your server gets certain data, and they both count the data, and they don't have a way to deduplicate it. So there's a whole section in the events manager called deduplication. It will show you how to set these things up from the beginning so that you don't duplicate your data. You basically have to send the same parameter in two places. Makes sense. You need like a Venn diagram of data, and the center piece needs to be something that both things share. So you could be like the FBP, Facebook Pixel ID, could be the event ID. Essentially it just needs to have a way to figure out, hey, Pixel, are you counting this thing? Because I'm counting this thing. And if they're both counting the thing, it deduplicates. So that's a big sort of like area to look out for. If you set up Conversion API and a week later you notice that all of your conversions are double than they were the week prior, it's not because your ads are working double as well. Most likely it's probably because you're double counting. So take a look out for that. And that's really it. That's kind of the big thing. So if you're looking to improve your data, have a better way of optimizing in your ad account, and really get ahead of the fact that broad targeting may or may not be working for you right now, that's really the biggest thing. You probably want to look at getting conversion API set up, CAPI set up. And if you don't know how to do it and you're looking for an ad agency that does know how to do it, shameless plug, we're Ad Class. We do this for our clients. And, we've actually had clients that have come to us and we haven't set up CAPI for them because there's multiple reasons why maybe they don't need it at that moment. And so what we'll do is, as part of the audit, we'll kind of talk through what makes sense to set up and what doesn't, because it's not always as simple as, hey, let's just switch over cold turkey, right? We're always a fan of optimizing toward return on ad spend first and foremost. And sometimes that means pushing back a little bit on just doing what everybody else is doing for the sake of doing it, right? But that's it. Matthew, any closing remarks? Anything you got that I missed on this one?
I don't think so, man. I think we covered it all. I think that it's really good to be aware of what's happening in your accounts, and the most important data is the most accurate data. And if you base your entire strategy or your assumptions of performance on incorrect data, then whether you realize it or not, that's going to really bite you in the butt down the road. So whether it's through CAPI, whether it's through third party like Hyro, something like that, whatever you can do to get the most accurate data possible, do it.
Word. That's right. And with that, we're coming to a close on whatever episode this is of Ad Talk. We never really quite figured it out. I think it was 21. 22. All right. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions on CAPI, if you're just generally curious about paid advertising, give us a follow, and we will give us an email. Honestly, we'll reply. Go to our website, reach out. We'd love to chat with you. And I hope you all have an amazing whatever day it is. Probably Wednesday.
And we will not leave it 6 months until the next episode. So
I promise. All right. See you guys.
All right.